Hello and welcome to another Saturday stream. This is Fantasy Grounds Unity map and image creation, and I'm Josh. So thank you everyone for joining me today. We don't have a whole lot of image-related news. All of the fixes are coming along quite nicely as far as I'm aware, and our Control-Z will be back into the program before we know it in the image work area. Obviously, Control-Z still works in any of the other areas. It's just in the image workspace that it has been temporarily turned off. Excuse me. And so yes, apart from that, the next art pack releases will be everything related to medieval sieges. So we have two art packs coming out for that. One primarily based around the siege type machines and offensive measures, and then one for the defensive ones as well. I gave a little sneak peek at those last week. So that should be coming out this next month. And so this next week we'll actually be using and diving into those art packs. We'll be making a medieval siege scene, some battlefield stuff, as well as creating like a encampment that is laying siege to some castle walls. So that should be super fun. But besides that, that is pretty much all of the news that I have, so that we can get right into doing some actual creation today. I don't have anything super rigidly planned, so if anyone has any sort of questions or would like to see any demonstrations or has any ideas of what we should make, you can throw that right into the chats, and I'll certainly do my best to accommodate. So I hope everyone's having a great week, and everything is going along swimmingly. The weather here has been quite erratic. I think it was like 90 degrees a couple of days ago, and then yesterday I think our high was like 57. So that's quite the change in temperatures. But we have a comment from it looks like YouTube. Been looking into FG a lot. Seems really great, but I've already owned a ton of content on. I'm assuming that is D&D Beyond. Any thoughts on integration or whether it's useful even without owning a bunch of the automated content? So the rule sets themselves, just to be clear on this, many of the rule sets will have lots of built-in functionality. So for example, 5th edition, which I'm assuming is where you'll be coming from for D&D Beyond, that rule set is baked right into Fantasy Grounds. You don't need to earn or own anything, purchase anything for the automation to be there. What will be missing is the actual built-in content. So you'll have access to all of the SRD content, but the books and whatnot obviously will, you would have to have it purchased in order for it to be automatically integrated into the system. So like Player's Handbook or Dungeon Master's Guide, all of the monster manual stuff and so on. You are also able to enter all of that information in. So if you own it in D&D Beyond, there's nothing stopping you from actually manually entering anything that you need into Fantasy Grounds. However, there is no complete integration. There's no connectivity between D&D Beyond and Fantasy Grounds. Let's see here. We got a question from J-Rock, also on YouTube, having an issue when I try to extend a map. The PCs can't see the extended art, and the tokens can't move onto the extension. Note that there are no LOS walls on the edge of the map. Yeah, that is because that the actual image size, when the whole thing gets integrated into it, I believe that you can change that. You can update that either by re-adding the players onto the map or by moving them to the new location. I think that there's something in there, I don't remember exactly what it is, that instantly kind of causes the, yep, you might have to turn off the lighting system or something along those lines. But yeah, we can, there is a little bit of a workaround there. Yes, so the way that the system actually works is when we create our original images, right, the bounds of our images are set in there for the line of sight and many of the other functionalities, so that your players don't just see for infinity. So to clamp down on some of those resources, it is limited to the size of the image space itself. So when we extend the image space we also need to update all of that information. So if you add on additional kind of elements on there, I believe that all you have to do is just refresh the vision system. So you might want to try and turn the lights on and off and so on and so forth, something along those lines. You can also right-click onto tokens and reset all of the vision. But that should be also noted that will remove any of the fog of war that has been that kind of like history of where players have been. Excuse me while I have a drink of water. So do you guys have any other questions? Do you guys have any sort of suggestions on what we should be building today? Well, we'll just get into, and I'm going to actually start to build some stuff here, and we'll go through some things as we kind of progress. If you guys have any sort of ideas, or if there's anything that you need further clarification on, please throw it into chat, and we'll be building out a couple of things today. So we have a question from Twitch, which is, how do you typically go about creating an overworld map for your campaigns? So if I'm going to build an overworld map, if I have no particular type of narrative, then if I have no particular kind of preconceived idea about what it is that I'm going to be creating, then I just kind of let my imagination flow, and then I allow it to create from there. We can certainly create some regional maps today. That's no problem. Okay, so J-Rock from YouTube is saying that he's having a trouble issue connecting terrain paint from one section to another. So are you using an actual brush, J-Rock? Because if you're using a brush and you're connecting it to the same piece, depending on the scenario that you're trying to do it on, but we can certainly go over some different techniques that you can use to connect things and to make things look a little bit more seamless. A really good technique to use in this kind of scenario is that you can always switch back and forth between the brush and the stamp tool, and this will enable you to kind of stamp onto a small section and cover up any sort of connectivity problems that you might have. And we can go over a couple of that stuff today as well. So yeah, why don't we build an overland map? We haven't done something like that in a long time. We can build it up from there. We'll be using, we have a couple of different art packages that are specifically designed for this. And I always start off by thinking about the size of the terrain that I'm going to be creating. And then I build it out from there, right? So we can be using a couple of the symbol packs and a bunch of the other stuff. So let's just open up our assets here. And I'm going to move over to our regional map packs. So here we have two very distinct kind of art packages that we have. We have one that is for that kind of traditional kind of map looking stuff, much like the old like Tolkien kind of maps. And then we have an updated kind of image set that we can use to create a little bit more of the maps that we are kind of accustomed in our modern age. So depending on which one you guys want to do, so do you think that you want to use, well, let me just show you guys a couple of examples here from inside the art packages. We have this one, which is the more kind of traditional images that we have like this. And we can build lots of different areas like this. Or we can go into, if we go all the way up, we have our old world regional maps here. And these are much more akin to maps like this. So do you guys have any sort of preferences? on what we actually use to kind of build this out? I'm kind of feeling this old style. I think that this might work really well, and give us a little bit of some different things that we can kind of talk about while we're doing it. How to expand on it and do lots of fun stuff. So what I'm going to actually do is let's open up our images. I think we actually have this old world regional kind of area. Now all of these techniques are going to work regardless of the art pack that you're using. So think of the art package as just the aesthetic, the feel that you want to do it and use it as. All of the different stuff is exactly the same as far as like its implementation. So using a brush in one particular instance is going to be exactly the same as using it in another one. You know, all of the techniques that kind of fit together work across the board. Oh yes, okay. So so a desert map, but during combat it doesn't let the PCs move beyond the area, which is not optimal because there should be more space, a whole desert area for the PCs to move in. Yeah, so you'll just have to actually put in some background kind of images there because, as I said, it'll clamp it into the size of the actual image space. So whether you actually decorate those areas outside or not, you will have to have some sort of image content out there. So I'm just going to grab this base background image and I'm going to drop it over here. And we can zoom in, and I'm going to change the size of this to 100 by 100. And we'll just line this right up. And I'm actually going to drop down the opacity of this to something like that. Yeah, absolutely, Jarek. We'll do a little bit of a demonstration on that today as well. I'll show you exactly. We'll figure it all out. So let's duplicate this just by hitting the duplicate layer button, and I'm going to make this a bit bigger, make sure that I'm in the correct area over here. And I'm just going to stack this right on top, and I'm just going to flip it so that we have a nice little seamless area over here. And then I'm going to grab these and let's duplicate both of these again, and I'm going to drag them over and have a nice big workspace that we can kind of go on here. Actually, let's go in the other direction. So you can see we have the nice repeating pattern here, but that's okay. We're going to be covering a lot of this stuff up, and we'll be able to build out all of our continental kind of area in here. So this can be a nice big world map here. I'll create a new folder, and we'll just call this base, and we'll grab all of these and drop them right inside of our folder. Now this will all work as a unit, and I can move this all around and deal with it as such. We have a whole bunch of brushes in here. Well, not a whole bunch, but a single brush in here for creating rivers and whatnot, and I'll show you how to use that. And most of this is going to be on our decorations. We have a whole bunch of different decorations that we're going to be using. Before we get into those, what we actually want to use is these tiles. And this is where it's going to help define all of the area outside of here. Now the difference between this particular art package and the other one is the way that this is kind of handled here. And let me just show you. We can go up to the other regional map pack here. And you can see that this is the same. It is all, basically you put down a base land system, and then you build out all of your water content, which is kind of how you get rid of the areas, or to define the areas of those particular elements that you want to be land masses, right? Instead of creating land areas over a water, this kind of goes in the reverse direction because we're mainly focusing on the land areas. Jumping into here, what we'll actually be able to do at this point is just drag and drop these elements out here and build out the very basic kind of, well, coastlines. And then everything else we're just going to be filling in with particular types of elements here. So you can see that we have some filler elements, some different rivers and whatnot. But as we pull these out, as you can see, they just kind of snap right into place, and we can start to add in all of these different elements. These all just kind of snap together as long as they line up correctly, right? So if I flip this, this is going to create a perfect kind of little element in here, and then I can grab something like this, and all of this begins to build out these kind of coastal areas. So what you really want to look at while you're actually doing these is the different height elements that we have here, right? So some of these are going to be too high, some of them are going to be 1.5, and some of them are going to be 1, right? So we can grab these elements, and we want to make sure that anything that we grab is going to line up with the corresponding element as well, right? So we can grab something like this and flip it, and these will all match right up. And this becomes kind of cathartic as we begin to move around here. We just want to make sure that all of these are going to work. And as you can see, we can really start to take control over. And we have some different elements like this, and these are all going to be used to help create the shapes and sizes of everything that we want to design here. So let's see here, we want something that has quite a lot of height. And we don't have to worry too much about these little gaps in here. We're going to fill all of this in with water later. And we might even want to build this into an area that is like a little narrow, little straight in here. And we can grab some of these caps and do things along these lines. And we can always change the shape of this, right? We can make this larger. And match that up pretty well just like this. And I think what we want to do is maybe add this element, something like this. And then we'll do something like this. And you can see you can really, well, we're already building up this area up and around through here. And in this particular instance, all I'm doing is just building a small little area over here. If we have too much land mass, then we can always delete some of this extra background. But you can see that this all kind of seamlessly starts to work together here. And then what I'll do is just duplicate this and flip it. And then we'll end it off coming down through this way. So we can grab something along these lines and just kind of snap this in here, and I will make this we want to make this 2. And I'm just going to hold down Control so I can line this up without having to snap to the grid. So we built this little inlet in through here, and I'm going to grab actually this element here. And there's a couple of different ways I can do this, but I'm going to paint it in. And this will just allow me to stamp it right over the top of some of these areas and kind of maximize how this is going to work here. And I'll just start to paint in these little areas. And I can always hold down Control, and I can snap it right to the edges really easily too. Great, now we've built our little coastline. We did it really very quickly. And added in a whole bunch of different little kind of elements here. And you can see we have some little islands and whatnot. And we can add in some additional kind of elements. And I'm going to show you how you can augment this. So we have this kind of like basal structure here, but we have all of these little elements as well. So what these basically can do is build off of here. And we can connect these together to create additional kind of island and unique elements. So for example, if I want to cut this off down through here, I can certainly use this to do that, right? So I can come in, and again, I'm just going to be stamping this in like this, finding another element that I want to line up with this, and boom, we can start to kind of slice these elements right off, and adding all of these additional kind of things like this, for example, we can begin to cut this up and make this kind of feel like that it is maybe an additional amount of islands. And don't forget, we can overlap these. All of these being in the same kind of color region really lends a lot of versatility in our abilities to make these into like these massive little bits of islands here. And then we can always come back in with additional elements like this. And if I want to completely remove some of these little areas in here, I can. And you can see what I've actually done is I've started to take control over this. And if we go into our brushes, and that's exactly what this is kind of designed to do, we can make this back down into our little area in here, and then I can actually draw whatever kind of little elements that I want to. I can start to really carve this up. And I can do the same along any of these. I can start to paint out all of the different little elements. You can see we have this little cluster of islands here. And I can begin to divide this up as well. Maybe I'll draw a little river coming off of here. And I can make it a little bit larger and kind of come here. And we want to do some nice smaller ones as this creates these little delta style islands. Very easy to do and super fun. We can just kind of dive in and begin to create these in any way that we wish here. We might want to even divide these up even more. And I could even control the shape of these, maybe round out some of the edges of this a little bit here. Very fun. And maybe, and so as you were talking before, J-Rock, about your having a hard time connecting things together or to make them look seamless, So let's say, for example, I'm going to be doing a large kind of area out through here. Well, let's make a new, I'm just going to do this for demonstration purposes. So I'm going to start to draw out my little, whoop. Let's make sure that I don't double click this time. And so in order for me to connect this, all I have to do is kind of line this up, hold down Shift and double click, and it will connect perfectly to it. Now it should be noted that you are only going to be able to use this if you're dragging. You can't really get into this kind of scenario, right? It's a little bit more of a tricky kind of thing. If you hold down Shift and you let go of it, it'll connect it. So it takes a little bit more practice to kind of do this. I'm holding Shift, and then when I let go of everything, it will connect it. And this is with me just dragging around. So that is an excellent way for you to line these things up perfectly. If you don't, right? Like let's say, for example, you have you're moving along, and maybe you let go of your line, but you don't want to redo the entire thing. The easiest way to do this and to line this up properly is to go right into the middle, and then you can hit Escape until you line this up into a reasonable kind of facsimile here, and then pick up your line by just overlapping slightly. And we can do the same thing by dragging into the area and then double clicking to kind of connect in an appropriate manner as well. Now we can even use this to kind of create our own custom areas as well. I can easily kind of paint out additional elements along the edges here. But let's use this kind of section over here. I'm going to add in a little bit more water along this edge. I'm going to kind of make this into the unknown here. So let's get back into our tiles, and we'll grab a couple of other elements here and just kind of build out this section. And we'll just drop this down in underneath. And I think we'll rotate it all the way around to something like this. And we can grab one of these. And maybe one of these. And I think we'll do something like this. And then we can just kind of cap it up here. Yeah, let's not use that one. We will actually want to use something more like this here, I think. And then what we'll actually do, well, this one. Yeah, what we'll actually want to do is bring this down on the other side here. And now I'm going to start to connect it back up this way. We'll just have like a little bit of water in up this right corner here. Let's see, we'll figure out a little connection here. Perhaps what we'll do is maybe we'll do something like this actually. And then we can change its, we'll change this to, it looks like it should be 2 across. I guess maybe 2.5. Yeah, that looks pretty good. And we can delete this one. And again, what I'll do is I'll just fill in these other areas. We'll grab this painting layer and put it all the way to the top. And I want to make sure I'm in my painting area over here. Grab my stamp tool. And I'm just going to kind of slide in here and begin to stamp these in. Now to go right up to the edge here, I can just hold down the control and I'm able to snap this. Make sure that everything here, I'm going to make this into like a 2x2 square. We're going to go down a little bit smaller here. Let's go down to like 1x1. And then I can just kind of make sure that this lines right up with the edge really easily. Great. And now we can always go back in and paint in any sort of rivers we want. But before I go back in and do any more of that, we're going to start putting into our mountains, figure out all kinds of different stuff. Yes, that's a lot of items. When you drag and drop items out, it'll create a new layer every single time. So certainly can be a little bit. And we might even want to grab this guy and put this down into our hotbar so that we can grab and use it very easily if we get into some other kind of areas here. But let's go into our decorations. We have a whole bunch of different stuff here. I'm going to start off with the largest areas like these mountains, and then we're going to build up around them. And we can create a new painting layer. We can call this one actually water, because this is going to be all of our rivers and oceanic kind of stuff. And to clean things up, why don't we add a new folder, and we can just call this coast. And we'll drop this down in underneath here. And then we used to be able to, this is not working at the moment, but we used to be able to select all of them holding down Shift. It seems to be a little bit of a bug right now, so I'll have to select them all individually. And you can do this by holding down Control. And I'm going to grab them and drop them right into our coast folder. And that'll clean things up really nicely. Nope, it doesn't add, if you're painting, it should never add a new layer as long as you have a painting layer selected. So the question is, does it add another layer for every stamp? And it does not. But what it does, if I drag and drop something out here, as you can see here, I drag and drop this out, it's going to create a new layer for this. If I use a painting layer, so if I do this out and I just write decor on this for decorations, I can now switch over to my painting tools and grab some mountains, for example. Let's grab this one. And you can see here, as I stamp this around, this is going to maintain a single kind of layer here. So I think I want to do like a mountainous region up through this area. So I'm just going to stamp, and as you can see, that's just going to go right into the same layer. And I can do this again. I'm going to make this a little bit smaller, as if these mountains kind of dissipate as they go up. And we can grab some additional kind of elements here. And I'm going to make these ones a little bit smaller as well. We can kind of place these right in front so it feels like it is one big, long, continuous kind of area here. Now at the end, we can come in and adjust all of these colors and do all of this. And doing that in unison oftentimes is a little bit more helpful than doing it while we're placing them down, especially in something like this. We also have some lakes and whatnot that we can place around, so lots of fun stuff. And we'll even get into using some of the GM tokens as well, the GM symbols. And we can integrate those, and I'll show you how you can match it all up so it all is in a similar style and works. We have some individual mountains as well, so we can come in and we can actually, if we wish, stamp in some additional kind of elements around, especially if we want to do something that is very specific. So never feel afraid to really take control of your creation here and just jump right in and start to build stuff. We can grab some of these additional kinds of mountainous areas, and maybe we'll drag and, we'll paint them into some areas over here. Maybe we'll do a little bit of mountains along here. And maybe some down around this way as well. And I think what we'll do is we'll grab, that's the same mountain range. Let's grab something like this. And we'll just run them up right along this coastline here. Nice. As you can see, we're really starting to build this area out. And if we have time, we'll see if we can't kind of finish this all off and really make this into a great little regional map. So here we have a bunch of our mountains already set up here. So let's grab some of these hills. And as we know, we want to do some hills kind of moving up from the mountains or down from that little transitionary kind of areas that we might have. And we want to make sure that we could do these in a kind of, doesn't have to be like believable. These are all like symbolic representations of things. But it still does want to make sense, right? I wouldn't want to stamp this right on top, something like that. We want to make sure that everything is clearly legible and kind of works in unison with each other. And I'll do some little hills kind of coming off of the edges here. And we might want to do some up here as well. And don't forget, we can always flip these around and do them in different directions if we so wish as well. We have all of our little individual hills. So I can come in and start to customize this in any way that I want to. And add in a whole bunch of different areas. And now that we have some base little geological kind of creations here, we should probably go in and do some hills around these as well. And I'll grab a couple of these little groupings and speed up the process here a little bit. Holding down Control and using my mouse wheel, I can change the size of these. And then I can come back in with, maybe we'll grab this one for a little individual elements. And maybe there's some hills out here this way too. All right, let's move on to forests. That's another large kind of area. One of the things that you want to think about when you're doing these things are what layers are going to be overcoming other layers, right? Like what elements do I not have to do because it's going to be being covered up by something? And which is one of the reasons why you always want to work in a way that is going to reveal those most effectively in the beginning. So if you have an area like this that you're going to have a very mountainous area, obviously you don't want to spend a lot of time doing other elements, because we will pile up some of these forest elements. We have some rather large ones that we can kind of do here. And we want to overlap some, right? Like we want this to possibly go into these kind of areas and cover up some of these the small hills areas. But we also want to make sure that we layer this correctly. And so what we actually want to do is start off farthest away. So if we're going to be doing something like this, maybe we'll add in a nice little forest here. And then this way, these will layer on top and it will make sense, right? So moving down in this direction, I can layer this on top of the edge. Obviously, I don't want to do it to the drasticness of something like this. It's going to get a little bit convoluted. But what I can do is these front trees are going to layer on top of some of these other ones, and this is going to get a very much more natural kind of progression here. So as I move these in, I'm just going to make sure that they're about the same size. They don't have to be exact. But now I can kind of control this. So I'm going to create this nice little open area in through here. Maybe we'll put in a small town. And I'm going to move this over so that we can kind of further accentuate that nice little opening down there. And so that is something that you always want to be a little bit aware of. Not necessarily, especially if you're doing this. I mean, you can always create more layers of for painting and do things behind and in front of. It's one of the advantages of using a system like this. But you do want to always be aware of working from that furthermost spot towards the bottom here. And we'll put in some other little elements down and through here. And then we have like some of these sparse tree elements, and this is going to work good for some of these areas. And we also have some individual trees as well. I'm going to use like a larger one though. Let's just fill up some of these areas a little bit faster. Maybe we'll drop it like right in through here. I think we'll use a little bit smaller of one. And I place these in and around something like this. And then we'll do excellent. Moving right along. And now let's add in some additional kind of elements. We have some different like rock formations and whatnot but we have some towns and things as well. But we'll add in some of these little like grassy bits. And I always imagine this to be kind of along the lines of like fields or And again, you want to make sure that you work from the top down. So that way, if you want to kind of overlap this a bit, you certainly can. And we'll just kind of place these around here. I don't have anything particular in mind. We're just kind of going with the flow. And at any time, if there's something that I don't want, I can just come back in and erase. Let's grab maybe like a small little building area over here, a little town, and we'll just drop them right in the middle here. Nice little town that we have there. I think I'm actually going to use some of the symbol elements from the GM symbols. Actually, we'll use these particular elements, but in there we'll actually use that. So we can grab some things. We have like these little statues and whatnot, or at least a little statue, I think. But again, I think I'm going to use those other symbols for all of that stuff. But I can grab some of these elements. And again, I'm going to use a couple of them, and I'm going to make sure that I kind of layer them. So maybe there is this neat rock formation there. All of these kind of points of interest that we might want to build up. I think that will be fine. Well, actually, you know what? That's a little bit. I think that'll be fine. We'll do something like that, and then we can throw in a couple of trees around it. Perfect. And we've quickly developed an entire region here, and without a whole lot of effort. And we can now, I think what we'll actually do is let's go back into our water area in here and grab this brush. And I'm going to shrink this down. And I'm actually going to, we can actually put in some lakes first, actually, you know. Let's grab some of these elements. Now these are kind of cool. We can use these in lots of different ways. I can actually stamp this right over here and create some additional kind of inlet areas. But I'm actually going to build out a little area up here. And I can do this. I'm going to be flipping this around and stamping this right on top of itself, creating a brand new kind of element here. So one of the great things about the way that this works, and this kind of color scheme, is we can create our own unique kind of shapes just by stamping several of the same image right on top of it. Right. So here we have this giant lake, and we can jump back into our brushes now, and I can paint off all of the different little elements that might be coming from here. So let's say, for example, if I wanted to paint out a little bit coming from there. And we can really do whatever we wish. And at any point, if there's something that I go and I'm like, oh, well, I don't really like that, I can just remove it. And I think I'll clean this edge up a little bit. I also have a lot of actual decorations. I think it's actually in tiles. And we can grab some of these as well. And these can all kind of snap together. It is great, though, to be able to just paint out exactly what you want. Seems we're getting a little bit of some strange anomalies there, but in these kind of riverlands that we have here. So yeah, here we have all of our base kind of elements. Oh yes, a small cluster of buildings for city and all kinds of stuff. Absolutely. But I'm actually going to switch over to using these elements. So let's go into our GM symbols, and in here we have all kinds of different stuff for exactly this kind of stuff, especially these symbolic representations. Now, I'm going to match up the colors over here, but I'm going to do it on a layer basis. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to add a new painting layer, and let's call this symbols. And so, for example, I could, sure, let's grab some of our boats, and we'll start to stamp these around. Now, these aren't going to really show up exactly the same way. We're going to find a color that is going to be working for us. Which might be a little bit different than we have here. But as I said, we're going to do it on the layer itself and not on the individual things here. So let's say, for example, we have a nice little port thing over here, and then maybe we're going to have some down here. And if I wanted to, I can also change the size of these. But let's switch over and grab our little color picker for the layer itself. And let's see what happens if we grab this. That's pretty good. We might even want to just drop down our opacity a little bit just so that it kind of fits in with the rest of the scheme here. You can see how easy it is to grab these and just kind of switch them into any sort of color scenario that you want to. So these will work very, very well in all of these circumstances. And now that we've done it on this particular layer, everything, we can change the size of this to denote like the different size of the ports and whatnot. So we can just kind of start to stamp these around. And now all of our symbols are going to be in the same exact kind of color scheme. And if we want to do individual adjustments, we can as well to create some little variants here. Especially if you're trying to create a color palette for particular regions or kingdoms or so on. It would be very easy to do. And then we can do the exact same thing. Maybe we'll grab our little castles. And we can jump in and do, let's say we wanted to put a castle here. Boom, there we go. And we can start to add these all over the place. Ooh, let's do the entrance to a dungeon. Right, let's do the one in the mountains. And I think what I'll actually do is come in here and let's create a new painting layer and drop it right in underneath. And I'll grab this and we can add in some little backdrops to these and make them stand out a little bit more. And we'll adjust these colors as well. And again, if I come into the Layers tab, I can adjust all of these colors at once. So if I decide that I want it to be something more like these, I can. And you can see that it's just going to give me some separation from what's behind it. I think I will make it a bit lighter, though. Something along these lines, and hit OK. And because we're doing it on the layer, I don't have to worry about it again. Every time that I paint this down, it's going to adhere to that same kind of color scheme. I can even drop down its opacity if I don't want it to be as intrusive. So let's go back into our symbols over here, and we can do a whole bunch of different other stuff here. So, let's do like a couple of lighthouses. Make sure that we're in our correct layer here. And we'll have to go back and add in additional kind of elements as well. And this is where I really start to have a lot of fun just kind of thinking about the world in general. And this is a great little stamp. I think I'll put it down here so that I can grab it often. I think I'll stamp just behind that a little bit more so it just stands out a little bit. And now let's add in some additional kind of stuff. What we might have, we could have like a crazy graveyard. Let's put it like in here. And then we could do some other castle kind of elements around. And why don't we do like houses for little villages? Thinking about where these kind of places would probably naturally exist. Actually, let's put a temple there. I think that sounds cool. And here we have, let's do some ruins, but let's grab a temple. And put that like right in here. And let's do some windmills out in these areas. Excellent. And what map would not be complete without a couple of skulls? So let's do like a big skull up here. And now we can go back in. Let's go back down into our painting tab here. And we'll grab this and we'll just throw these, a couple of these in behind here. And again, this is just to help separate. I'm just clicking once behind each of these. And because we've done this all on the layer tab of changing the colors and whatnot, we can easily come in and do an adjustment to them. So anything that we want to do in addition to the fact, we certainly can. So let's say, for example, we decided to, in our symbols area, we needed to have a little bit more of an adjustment. Or we wanted it to stand out a little bit more. We can come in and I'm just going to grab, I guess that's, this is the original kind of color here. So perhaps we wanted it to be a little bit more on maybe like the red side. We can do this, and we can darken it up if we want, making these stand out as much as we want to. I think I'm going to go with a little bit more of a muted color here. We'll go something like this, but I'm just going to increase the some of these colors just a little, and I think that's good. That seems to perfect. Now we have this entire region all done, and we can start to add in some additional elements. And here is some really fun stuff that you can do even with maps like this. You can use lots of different effect layers and change this. You could even do like some color adjustments, if you especially if you want to do like muted tones and whatnot. But in the actual regional map pack here, we have some nice texture overlays as well. So if we get into our effects, we have these cool kind of texture bits. And these can just be kind of, they're more along the lines of like stains or whatnot that you might have on your parchment, something along these lines. And these can be added into all of these different elements here. Let's see, how tall is this? 50 wide and 32. And again, I can adjust these colors, so maybe I want to make it a little bit darker. And then I can control the opacity of it. Add in all kinds of different stuff, but let's create a new effects layer. And in our effects layer, let's go to adjust colors. And in here, we might want to create a little bit more of a green area, right? So we can increase the green. We might want to decrease the brightness just to change it a little bit. And then we'll add a mask. And so let's say, for example, if we wanted to, and we can drop this down in underneath all of our different other elements, so it's not going to affect our symbols in any way. But we might want to do it above our decor, but we'll see. But let's say I decide that I want to have some like green in these areas. Here I can do this very easily, and maybe we'll blur out the edges here so it's a little bit softer. And you can see that I can now start to colorize this. Maybe we even want to do some green in through here. And you can see it's underneath all of the decor, but if I want it to be over, I can do that too. And we can do some more green pastures over here. And by keeping this subtle, as you can see, we don't really interfere with any of those kind of like map feeling kind of elements. It almost feels like a watercolor painting. So maybe we're going to do all of these kind of areas, like nice lush kind of areas. And we can adjust this, right? If we want it to be less intrusive or more, we can adjust all of these after the fact. And I'm just holding down Control so that I can mask out or reveal any of these areas that I want. Maybe we'll just come down through some of these hills. And I can do this with any sort of colors that I want. So I could create a new effects layer. And again, go down to adjust colors. And here I might want to, again, I'm going to drop this down in the same kind of area here. But perhaps I want to do, I don't know, maybe like a deeper green for the forests, or I could do maybe some other color for like, maybe like purpley for the, let's do here, and then we'll just drop down our elements here. So maybe we're going to do something like this, right? And who knows where we're going to put it in. Or we could actually do like snowy areas from the top or something along those lines. And then again, we want to make sure that we adjust this appropriately. So we might want it to be dark, but not quite so. And we may want this to be above all of our decor as well. Actually, yeah, let's just do like snowy from the top. So we can kind of do something like this. Get our color kind of accurate here. Let's put these back to 50. And I'm just going to maybe we have a little bit of a snowy area up here, so we can begin to do this. And drop down the blue a bit here. And maybe I'm just going to do some like random kind of elements that pop down. Now obviously this would probably be water over here, but we'll just do this temporarily here, as you can see. And you can do this out in the water too. You could create little areas out through here. And then if I wanted to intensify this, if I wanted to make it a little bit more or less or whatever, I'm going to actually drop this down to something like 55 so it's more subtle. And then I can duplicate this layer, put it right on top here. And because this is going to be intensifying it, I can now take away on some of the edges here to create a nice little effect. And then I'll drop this back. Let's drop this down to like 52. And I can make this as subtle as I want to. And I could do this several times if I wanted to make like a layered kind of effect doing this. So basically you can see here I'm just doing like a stepped kind of event there to create some really cool kind of that snowy kind of feeling as it dissipates down into the areas down below. And we could even drop these down in underneath as well. Now obviously you don't have to do any sort of color adjustments or do any of those things, but you certainly are able to, and that is super fun. So let's have a look here at the elements. Let's actually turn these off for right now. And we have this nice little region that we've created. And you could actually probably spend an entire career adventuring in this one particular region. But let's say you want to keep going. You want to keep building on this. And we were just going to keep continuing on this way. We can do it exactly the same way we had. One of the cool things about putting all of these elements inside of a folder is if we duplicate them, so if we get back into our little elements like here, if we duplicate these inside, it'll stay inside of the folder itself. So I don't have to keep chasing them around and doing all of these different stuff here. So for example, if I was going to continue this particular element over here, I might want to grab maybe like this, or I might even want to grab, we can turn these off for right now, or we can just kind of select them. So here we have this element, and we're going to be attaching something to it. So maybe if we were to grab something in here, and we duplicate it, as you can see, here it is. And we can just kind of grab this. And continue to build out all of these different elements as we kind of progress here. So even after the fact of us working on a pretty substantial region of this, but you can see we can create a much larger one, we can continue on this journey. So we can even, if we so wish, which might even be an easier way to kind of do this, if we go back into our water tab here and go back into our painting, we can grab this blank water tile. And we can actually block out the major areas that we want to, and we can actually do this with a rather large kind of thing. Maybe we want to do a bit of a divide in here of water, and then we can just kind of build around the edge here. And I think what we'll do is we'll taper that off and kind of build it out from there. So again, let's pull up our assets and go into our regional, old world regional, grab our tiles. And we can start to paint this stuff all around here. I guess not really paint. Oh, didn't want to do that. Reset it. I think we might get rid of this in the middle here. And we'll build out, just kind of do this a little bit more freeform. And then we can just kind of drop it there. And I think we'll duplicate that and put one here, except we'll flip it. And then I think we can grab this one. It actually is quite relaxing and fun to do. And we can, I guess I got a little bit too sidetracked and I stopped talking. We can build this around like this, and then I think what we can do is take this, flip it, and we'll make it just too tall, and it will should fit right into this little spot here. Whoa. Perfect. And we'll go back over and grab our little blank section, and we'll just start to fill this in. Make sure that we're in our water area here. And we can make this quite large. Fill in these gaps. Perfect. We should do a little bit section right there. And we'll have to figure out what's going to happen over there and down here as well. But before we go too much further, I'm just going to grab all of these and throw them right into the other file there. And I'm just going to grab and drop them somewhere. Let's see here. Drag and, oh, it looks like that it, there it is. And now we have that all in one particular area, which is really great if I decide that I want to change the color of the water. I can easily do that as well. Having it all, and all of my other water elements are all on one layer. So that would be a very easy kind of adjustment. So let's just grab, it looks like that we could do a small little piece here that will just, I think that this one will work well. And I'm just going to increase its size and line it up right here. So the way that the size works is it goes a little bit from both sides. So place it right in the middle and then duplicate it in any way you wish that way. Now let's come down and do this one, and I'm just going to grab one of these and drop it like this, and then I think I can do something along these lines to kind of end it off on there. So we have our land that kind of goes up and down in both sections. Now again, I can come in with my in the water area. Let's just grab these first though and drop them into our little coasts so that everything is all combined. And we can turn these back on if we so wish. Adding a little bit of texture here. I guess we can turn them off for now and put them back on at the end. But here we have a pretty substantial regional map that we're moving right along through. We can build out some additional kind of areas, and we can also add in, through an adjustment layer, we can do some color variations and do all kinds of different fun stuff. And now one of the things that we can also do that is kind of ingrained into this is that because these are all kind of separated, really what we have is this is the main kind of work stuff that we have done. The rest of it is just this one large kind of open canvas. So basically all it does is kind of cut away with the water elements, those particular areas that we don't want to see from the underneath, right? It's using that positive to create the negative space. So if I wanted to come in here and adjust the water, maybe if I wanted to make it a little bit more blue, you can see the painted areas are still going to be the same. But let's say we drop down the red and the green. We wanted to make it a little bit more blue. We could even subdue that. We can just grab this, hit OK, and then we can do exactly the same thing here. And you can see that that's going to match up all of those colors perfectly. So we have a much greater kind of divide between the two. Now at any time I can come back in and I can readjust these, right? Perhaps I want to make it a little bit lighter, maybe even a little bit greener. Let's say I want to do something like this. I can hit OK. I'm going to copy that first, and I'm going to do it here. I could also include this into the other elements. I could just drop the water down into here, but keeping it separate just gives me a really easy access to if I paint in any other rivers. And because I'm doing an adjustment on this particular level, on the layers level, I never have to worry about it. Anything that I grab and drop into here or paint into here is going to be exactly the correct colors for usage, as you can see. It all seamlessly kind of blends together. I can even do the same thing with these underlying elements. The only issue is that all of these painted elements are very opaque, and so all of the other adjustments are going to get done in addition to that. So if I was going to do an adjustment over the top of this, let's say we do, let's do time of day. As you can see, we can adjust all of this stuff together here. and adds a whole new layer on top. And we can even, let's put some of this back in. Yeah, maybe we want this here, but maybe this one we'll drop down the opacity a bit more. And we could also make that, yeah. And that is a very cool, I think, regional map. Very easy to get going. You can see how you can just keep expanding with it and expanding with it. We could build out this region. We could even cut this off to make it one complete kind of continent. But yeah, it's super fun. Super fun, you guys, to kind of begin to build this out. And you can use all of the different elements that you wished in through here. And I think that this kind of stuff is super fun to kind of add into games as well, because it does really feel like an actual map itself. And we could even add in, let's see, parchment. Which will add in some different kind of line work and whatnot. Increase our vignette. And it adds some textual kind of overlays that we can do. And we can layer this in a particular order, change a lot of the dynamics and whatnot. And then it would really kind of feel a lot more like that. We can even add in, there's a whole bunch of different ones that are specifically for doing certain kind of elements along these lines. If we want to take away some of the color and make it a little bit more subdued, we can add a grayscale. Lots of super fun stuff that we can kind of play around with and really make it unique and our own. If we go into the other regional map pack as well, there is a whole bunch of other decorative elements. There's some really basic symbols, but in here we have a whole bunch of different filigree and other elements. And these can all be used in conjunction. I wouldn't use much of these other decorations, but things along these lines, if you want to add like decorative kind of elements to your maps, this can work really well in addition to that. So let's create a new painting layer. We'll do a nice big fish out here, and maybe a ship. Or I think that we even have some nice little decorative elements. And here we have all of our border brushes and but again, we can come in and we can adjust these independently to whatever we feel like is going to work best for us. So if we want to keep them light, we can certainly do that. We can add color to them. Maybe we want to make them darker. And so yeah, have the fun with it. It is super addictive as we begin to work on this and start to dive into it. It's hard for me to stop. I just want to keep building out regions and areas and coming up with ideas. Great. So does anyone have any questions? It's pretty self-explanatory so far. It's using all of the basic kind of functionality in the image workspace. So it shouldn't be anything new to anyone who has watched the stream before, but pretty straightforward. And I find it to be super cathartic. It's very, it's super fun. And why don't we take a little bit of a break if there's no questions? It's about halfway through the stream, and I'm just going to grab a fresher on my beverage. And then we can build something in the other regional pack. I can kind of show you the difference between the two. Or if there's anyone else that has a suggestion of something they'd like to see done, we can certainly do it. All right, guys, so hang out for a few minutes, and I will be right back. All right, and we're back. Thanks for hanging out, everybody. It looks like we have a couple of questions while I was gone. The first one is from Twitch. Is there a way to use the coastlines from the Old World map pack and the coastlines from the regional map pack, or are the styles too different? The styles are too different, and I don't even believe that they would line up appropriately. It would be pretty difficult. So if we were to look at the tiles in this map pack, and if I were to drag one out, as you can see, there's just no way that these are going to line up in any sort of reasonable way. You can use just the water elements from one pack. So you could just use these, for example, with the rest of this art package, and it would work fine. So you could, but I would just stick to one very specific kind of art pack for its coastline creation. We have another question from YouTube. Is there a good way to do like a sun outside of a cave entrance with the light system? So you is the primary location outside of the cave or inside of the cave? Are you doing it all on one map, depending on how it's set up? But sure, we could do that. We could create a little cave area and then work with some lighting systems and show you guys how you can kind of inventively create a whole bunch of different things along those lines. Now let's go into our underground. And we'll go into our assets. We'll go into, well, let's start off with the 2019 art pack. And I'm just going to grab out a couple of these tiles, and I'm not going to be too picky about how this is set up here, but we'll change this to 100 and drop down this opacity. Switch over in here, and then I'm just going to duplicate this a couple of times. So we have this 20 by 20 workspace. So what I'll actually do is I'll just do like the little cave divide. We'll do a little bit on the outside and a little bit on the inside. And I'll show you how to kind of set this up. I'm actually going to do the cave on this side with the sun coming from the top left-hand corner. And then we'll do a little bit of the inside of the cave as well. So you can see a little bit of the sun like kind of penetrating in and along those lines. So the next thing I'm going to do is, well, let's create a folder, and I'm just going to call this ground. And we'll grab all of these and drop them right into that folder. Now we can add in some different elements all around, but the first thing that we're going to do is just create our basic kind of environment here, right? So let's go into the underground map pack 2, and I'm going to grab a brush. We'll grab this wall brush for our cave wall, and I'm going to drop this down to something like this. And why don't we start like right up here? Actually, let's get that right up to the edge, shall we? And then we'll build out our little cave entrance area here, and then we'll just kind of bring it down and end it there. So here we'll have like the entrance to our cave. We'll build it up here in a second, and then we'll build out the rest of this. And what I'm actually going to do is I'll come into, I think it's in, is it under walls? Yeah. I'll just switch to my stamp tool, and I'm just going to kind of stamp out all of this area. And I'm going to build the inside of my cave right on the top of this. So we have this little area in here to work with. And then if I come back, we can go into our decorations, and then let's just grab like rocks. And I'll grab a couple of these rocks. Let's grab this one. And we'll start to build our cave entrance like right here. I'm actually going to do this on another, so let's call this, well, let's just call this cliff, and then we'll call this cave. So make our cave entrance something like that wide, right? And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to build up some different elements here. We'll turn this off and we'll change these a little. And I'm just going to do this kind of quickly here. And then maybe what we'll do is build just like a nice little, very easily identifiable kind of entrance. And then I'm just going to finish that off with like shadow. Interesting. Yeah, that should be good enough. We'll do some shadows out from there and whatnot, and then we'll do the inside of the entrance on the other side here. So we have a little bit of a transitional spot where they kind of come in and go out, and then we'll build like a little entrance area in through here. So what I'll actually do is create another painting layer and drop it in between, and I'm just going to call this one shadow. And we can grab a nice little shadowy kind of brush. And I'm just going to stamp out some shadow coming out from there. Something like this. And then we can come in and adjust the opacity of that to something that makes a little bit more sense. Nice. And so we have this nice little cave entrance here. And we haven't even gotten into our lighting system yet. We're just kind of setting up the scene here, but we're going to do it pretty simplistically. And now let's build the kind of the inside of my cave area here. And I can do this a couple of different ways, but I think what I'll actually do is just for demonstration purposes, I'll just create like a really simple kind of interior area here. So we can do this a couple of different ways. I can again paint out the same kind of stone areas in here, and yeah, why don't we do that? And then what I can do, I'm going to do this on a separate layer here. Let's do it here, and we'll call this cave interior. And I'm actually going to create a little divide here. So there'll be like a little transition. We'll set up our line of sight along the edge of the wall. And so what I would do is just transition the players from one side to another in this kind of scenario, rather than have this completely broken in. But we could do that too. You know, we could actually create the actual interior here. Let's think about this for a minute. Yeah, we might actually do that. Yeah, so if I go back to here, I could actually probably erase some of this wall, and then I'll just rebuild it. And I'll erase some of these stamps here in the middle as well. Yeah, so why don't we just do that? We'll create a nice little. And this was 2 before. So again, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to. Here is a nice way that I can show you how to connect these, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom in here pretty good, and I'm going to try and get right in the middle and find a good little connection area, something like this. And so I'm just going to pull this out and then bend this around to create the entrance area. Well, that's a little bit too much. So we'll move back into here. Let's try this again. Actually, what I'll do is I'll put out a little section just like this. And I'm going to pull this up and then I'll double click it and then I'll bend it around. And again, I'll do the same thing here. And then this will be like our little cave entrance. We'll just kind of bend it right around there. And you can see I can just, there's a little bit of a hiccup there. But basically what I did was I used the image to help me line up with the rest of the image that I'm trying to line up with. And this one's a little bit more wonky, but we'll make do. We'll do our little lighting system down through here, and that should work fine. So let's go into our walls, and we'll grab this guy again. And now I'm just going to make sure I have my stamp tool selected. And I'm just going to stamp these little elements away so that we have this nice little consistency kind of thing in here. And we can go down and add in a different ground and whatnot and do all kinds of different stuff. So let's go back into our decorations, and now we can do grab a couple of these rocks. And I think what we'll do is maybe change this. We'll just add in some additional kind of rock elements. Kind of build this out a little bit more. Cool. Yeah, that looks pretty good. We have a little narrow kind of passageway here, but that's okay. We're not going to worry about it too much. And then we can go into our, if we go all the way up, let's see, oh. We have some of these, but I think in the effects, yeah, we'll grab some of this stuff. A nice little floor transition, and I think we'll drop down its opacity a little bit just so it's not so so crazy. So basically we'll have this little narrow kind of squeezing area where you can come into, and then we'll set up all of our lighting. And just to change things a little bit, let's go back to the 2019 art pack, and we can just type in grass, and I'm just going to grab a couple of these like grass elements and plop them around on the outside too. And we'll just throw in a couple more here. We'll have a little like trail, but this will give us a really good little indicator of like the lighting system and how it's kind of going on. And the next thing we're going to have to do is set up our line of sight So we'll do that with its own wall layer here. Oh, hey, J-Rock. No, oh, hey, John. So yes, I don't believe that there may be on the wiki, J-Rock, about all of the different shortcut keys. I'm not exactly sure, but you can go check that out. And no, I have not done the extending map yet, so we'll do that with this one. We'll put on somebody limit their vision and then extend it, and we'll see exactly which scenario is going to work best for that. So here I'm going to just do a simple walls, and I'm going to bring this up all the way. Let's do it right along this edge. We want to have a little bit of the exterior out here. And I'm going to bring it right up to like this. And I actually think that what I'll do is I think I might actually use like a yeah, why don't we just leave this open? We can just do, I think that the line of sight is, this is all we're going to need. Because if we switch over now and we turn on our line of sight, make sure all of this is enabled, we can now turn on our, well, we can just set it to sunlight. You can see there's the length of our shadows, and here's the direction of our sun. And what I'll actually do is jump in here and create a mask. And we'll be putting all of this inside of our mask here. We'll make sure that we incorporate all of this. And even along this edge, we want this to be included in our mask as well, because we're going to be doing an artificial light source coming in from the outside. So as it sits right now, all of this is well lit in the sun, and nothing is in the sun on the inside. So we can even turn off casting shadows if we want to, because it's really not going to affect us very much. We might want to have it on if we were going to have some other stuff on the outside here. But here, basically, when your players show up, they're just going to be able to see the exterior here. I'm not exactly sure, John CC. I looked, and the last ones that I put in were quite some time ago. So whatever updates were either got delayed from a while ago and were in old patch notes, or it might have been something else. So I'm not exactly sure, but I will find out. I didn't put in any sort of updates for them in quite a while. So now we're going to create a pseudo light source coming in from the exterior here, right? And where we're going to do that is I'm going to drop one right in here, something like this. And what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to move it. You see how this is going to create, I don't know if this is visible to you guys, but there is a little bit of bright light out through here, which we don't want to have. And I'm going to put this right here. I'm actually going to drop this down to 0. So it only does, or maybe we'll just do 1. We'll just do a little bit at the front entrance here. And we'll make that 50. Maybe we'll do 2. Yeah, something like this. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my the alpha of this, and you'll be able to adjust all of this brightness, and I can change this to whatever is actually supposed to be done here. But what I'm actually going to do, let's drop this down to something like 4, and let's change that fall off. Might even do both of them at 100. Whoop. So basically what we'll get is this kind of pseudo light that is coming in from the entrance here. And it doesn't have to be created from the actual exterior here. And I would actually put on maybe like a little element on here. So let's go ahead and grab from our combat tracker here, grab Johnny out here. And as we click on Johnny, we're going to see exactly what Johnny sees. As you can see, as he moves around, he can see into the entrance area there. And then as he moves in, that's as much as he can see. There's a little bit of ambient light, but as he moves down into the darkness, he's going to be... And as you can see, this is as far as he can actually move. So let's give him a small amount of lighting. I'm going to give him a candle, and we'll add that to him. And you can see that as I move out of the realm of where there's actually images, his lighting doesn't matter. So we're going to turn this off for right now. As you can see that this is the edge of my background image. And you can see that his vision also ends at the edge of this image. So what we actually want to do is extend this during play, right? So maybe they've gone into here. I haven't created this, but I'm going to create it on the fly. So I'm just going to grab, let's grab, well, we can just create 4 more of these. Boom. And then I'm just going to grab them over, and we can drop them right over here. And now when we switch back over, we can see that there is a strange kind of interaction that's happening here. But if I disable the lighting system and then I turn it back on, everything will work again functionally. So all you have to do is just turn off lights and then turn it back on again, and all of your additional kind of added elements will then be lit up, and they can move about it as normal. And we should also probably include this in our dark area over here. So with our add mask selected, hide area is what we want. We can just hide this entire area. And let's grab our token, and I'm going to move him to the outside here. And let's reset his token vision. So we go to visibility, reset fog of war, and now he has no idea what is behind there. And here we go. As he moves in, we have a little bit of light that comes in, but then it's his own light source, and it all works perfectly. So basically just toggle the lights on and off, and any new additional elements that you get added will get included into that scenario. Very easy to do. And super fun. Do you guys have any other questions, or is there anything else that I can help you guys with? I don't see any other questions in the chat. Let's move on over to, let's go to the other regional map pack. And we'll just open up this. Let's go back to regional areas here. We'll do it in here, that's fine. So I'm going to grab, we have a whole water background, which we can use. And we can do this in a couple of different ways. And this is kind of where this particular element kind of differs a little bit from the other ones. But I'm going to grab something like this, I think. We'll turn off light. And we'll make this, oh, it's already 100 by 100. Great. And let's see, the size of this is 20.8. That's weird. Let's just make it 20 by 20. And I'm actually going to turn on my grid so I can see it a little bit better. And let's just drop down the opacity. Oh, so we have a question from Twitch. How does the fog of war unmask itself as the token progresses? So there's several different systems that kind of work in tandem. There's the dynamic lighting system. There is the fog of war system, and then there is like the vision memory of your token. So if we go back to the image that we were just working on. In this particular type of scenario, the player has all of this that is available to them that they are able to see, right? I click on them, and this is everywhere that they've been. So if I reset this, go to the vision and reset fog of war. See, this is no longer visible. So this is based off of as this player kind of progresses, his lighting system. He's got a candle that's lit. All of the vision that is able to be seen by him, it remains in his kind of discovered areas, right? Now if I come in here and let's go to his token light. Now let's increase the size of this. Maybe the dim lit is 6 and the bright is 3. So now he has a much larger area. You can see that this has instantly updated all of his vision. So it's all working in tandem, all together to help him. And if I unclick his token, I'm going to see from the GM's point of view a little bit different. But with his token selected, this is exactly what he sees. He can see what's around him, what's out here. But he has memory of this area. But if I were to take let's say an NPC token, let's drop him out here and make sure that they're all visible there. Now you can see that he can't see this, right? You can't see that that token is there until he comes out, and now it's visible. In the same vein, right, if it is in here, he can't see this token because it's not in his bright light, but now boom, now it is available to him because that's just in his memory. So the cool kind of thing about this is, let's say that the token is here, and we'll put it right there, and as he moves away, if this token is shrouded in darkness as it is right now, even though he can see beyond, and he can see this, he still can't see that. So it's all works in tandem with each other, and how the memory of the token is affected, of where it's been, and also what it can currently see. You don't have to set any mask. No, I'm just resetting it for demonstration. So as soon as you turn on, so here, let me delete this guy. He's no longer on the map, and we'll put our goblin on the inside here. So if I grab, oh, maybe we'll just grab Lisa, for example. So Lisa has never been on this map before. She's got no memory of anything. I have not added any particular masks or done anything whatsoever. So the system is going to inherently create all of this for her. So as she moves in, because she doesn't have any light source, she can't see anything beyond what illuminates from the entrance of our cave. So her vision is all out here, but you can see as she moves in, she no longer can see these areas, but her vision does remember what's over there. She wouldn't be able to see any sort of new activities until she was able to see it. But from here, it's all handled automatically. You don't have to actually do anything as long as your line of sight, and I can turn off the player view so I can have a much broader view of what's kind of going on. But as long as you have line of sight and lighting enabled, it'll handle it all automatically for you. Yeah, I put up a mask for the, so the first thing that I did was in the ambient lighting, I created a mask so that our ambient lighting does not penetrate the interior of my cave. That has nothing to do with the player vision. It does in this kind of the sense that there's no lighting from the outside system that's coming in here. But that's just for the lighting itself. So if I were to, for example, turn off the lighting that is ambient on the outside, so you can see it has no effect on the interior of the cave, but now our token is in complete darkness. Turn it back on and they can see again. So that is just for the lighting. It has nothing to do with the memory or the token. Yes, yeah, you can set up masks specifically for effects layers, lighting systems, all kinds of different stuff. So the masking feature, even though it's probably similarly coded throughout the entire system and they're all masks, they do have different functionalities, right? So let's say, for example, if I were to create an effects layer, and let's do snow. And I'll turn up the intensity quite a bit. We'll drop down the size a little. So here we have all kinds of snow. We'll slow it down. Now you can see that all of this area is affected by the snow, but let's say I don't want it to be snowing inside my cave. I can add a mask to it, and then all I have to do is actually reveal where I do want the snow to be. And I can add all the snow to the outside of the cave. We might even want to do a little bit on the inside and then blur it out a little so it's a little bit of a fade. But I might even want to take some of this away. We'll just do a little bit like this. So here we have all this nice snow. Let's slow it down. So we have this nice kind of like slow snowfall. Yeah, and so as you can see that this only interferes with the actual effect layer. It has nothing to do with the token itself and my ability to. So think of it as this masks are just a way to determine where an effect or lighting system is going to function. And then we can just delete that. So yeah, basically that's how I would set up a cave entrance with the lighting system, and then do a little bit of an ambient light as it kind of comes in. So you get shadow on one side and then a nice little light on the other side. Super fun. And so back into this particular system. So I'm going to do exactly the same thing I did before, but a little bit faster. We're kind of getting low on time here. We've got about 45 minutes left. So again, we jump into our tiles, and this is a very similar kind of system, right? We're just going to drag and drop these out, and each one of these is going to fit. This one is a little bit more advanced in all of the different ways that they kind of connect together and the different shapes and whatnot that you can create. So as you can see here, you can create some very cool kind of shapes. Let's see here. Which means that you can actually, fit a lot of this stuff together. We wouldn't use this one, but you can fit a lot of these elements together and create like your own little islands and whatnot. Let's build this out a little bit more. I think I'm going to maybe do something like this, and then that might close that off a little bit much. So let's maybe do something like that. Or actually, let's put this up in maybe up here. And then we can grab some of these elements, I think. And again, these all snap seamlessly together, making this pretty easy. I'm going to do like this little area down here, and then I'm going to do another one up here. And we can grab this. And then we're going to need a little element over there, maybe something like this. Perfect. And so there we've built this little area. And now we're going to do something on the top too. I don't know if we'll end up using that, but we shall see. Excellent. And then I think we'll just finish it off. Well, that's a little bit interesting. Maybe if we flip it this way. I think that if we add in an element there and then add in this, I think that that will work pretty good. Let's see what we got here that we can use there. I think something like this. And then we can do something like this. And that's perfect. And so here is all of our coastline elements. And again, we have these nice little filler elements. So let's replace this one down here in case we need to grab it again. And we'll create a new painting layer. And again, I'm going to do exactly the same kind of thing. I'm just going to start stamping these in here. And we can change this to like 2. And there is all of our water, and we've created these two little areas out here. We should probably create a folder for coast and drop this down in underneath our painting area. And I'm just going to select all of these and drop them right into there. And here, one of the differences between the other one, the other regional pack, and this one, is that we have all kinds of cool, what do we have in here for effects? Yes, we have more textures and a nice vignette that we can add. But basically we have a lot of these ground textures that we can now paint right over the top of a lot of these elements. So this becomes a little bit more painterly. And so if we create a new painting layer and we put this in underneath our coasts, we can grab something like this and we begin to transform our landscape here. Now you can kind of just do it haphazardly like this. You can do it in lots of different ways, but this is going to instantly kind of give you tons of different texture, which you can use to begin to build up some of these areas into some of this stuff. So for example, if we wanted to put in a desert area, as you can see, we got lots of cool desert textures on it and whatnot. Looks like we forgot to do a little element down there. We should do that. Let's grab something like I think something like this is going to work good. Nope, that's not the one we want. We want something that's going to go the other direction. So we want something like this. Perfect. And I'll just drop that down into the coast as well. And this way we can grab this, and if we want to, we can again change colors. And we're going to need to do, we should probably put that painting layer in there as well. So now when we grab this folder, we can now change the colors, and if we want to, we can make it, if we wanted to make it more blue, for example. We could make it very blue. So maybe we'll do something like that. Well, let's make it a little bit darker though. Sure. So hit Control C just in case we need that again. And here we have all of our coast created, and this is be our ocean in through here. And we've created all kinds of texture on our land through this painting layer. And we can also, if we want to drop that down, we can. We can just make this like this very base kind of texture. And then we can create as many of these painting layers as we wish. So let's go back up, and I think we have a nice desert. So maybe we're going to create a desert down through here. So I can drop down the opacity of this if I want, and just begin to stamp this out. And I'm going to do this underneath, so I can't interfere with, and I can drop this down. to maybe something like 50 if I really want it to kind of feel like it's this massive desert that kind of encroaches out. We have all this nice texture with it. Very cool. Again, we can go into our decorations, and we have all of the same kind of things that we would have with the other art packs as well. We can do like these rocky kind of elements throughout our desert. Maybe we'll drop down our opacity. Lots of subtlety going on there. And we might even want to do some of this kind of like rocky stuff in here as well. Excellent. And perhaps there is this crater out here. Like right in the middle of the desert. Super fun. And then we have lots of these different textural kind of elements. I always like to put them at a pretty low opacity and then build these up from here. You can see you get these layers and layers of textures, and we can even have this kind of come down into the desert some. And out into the surrounding areas. And now if we want to add in some other elements, we have all of these different mountains, and we have some snowy areas too. We could build like a snowy area kind of encroaching down from the top. But lots of mountainous kind of elements. And again, we're just building a layer upon layer on top. And at any time, if there's stuff that I don't like, I can just come in and erase it. I might want to add in vegetation. And again, I'm going to lower down the opacity, maybe like 150. And maybe we'll just build up a little bit of some greenery in through here. And again, we have all the lakes and whatnot that all work completely in conjunction. So here we have a painting layer inside here. I'm going to move this up towards the top here. And if I want to grab some lakes, for example, and this can further kind of enhance the same kind of system, I can augment my coastlines. And because I'm doing it inside of this the folder itself, which we've adjusted all the colors on, I can now just kind of go through and grab some of these elements. and just plop them down. Now these rivers are set up a little bit differently because you can see that these all have like a black line on them, unlike the other art pack. So they have to be used a little bit more carefully so that they kind of blend in to the surroundings here a little bit. But all you have to do is kind of line it up a little bit, maybe something along these lines, and then boom. And as you can see, that makes a pretty convincing little inlet. And again, because we're doing it inside of here, it all works without too much effort. So you can do these coming off of any number of these kind of elements. You just kind of line them up and drop them right down. So let's add in some of these snow elements. So we'll grab something along these lines. And again, I'm going to come into this area here. Actually, make a new and I'm going to begin to just kind of stamp this around. And I'm not going to worry too much about going outside of the border here at the moment. Just going to kind of do something along these lines. And now I can come back in and adjust the opacity and bring that down into something. Well, actually, you know what? Let's actually do it with the painting tools here. So let's just erase these. And let's drop down our opacity to something like 50. And then I'm going to start to stamp out. It'll be a little bit more natural to do it this way. And I'm just going to darken up some of these. Well, not darken, but to, through layers, create some nice little variations in the opacity of the snow texture. And maybe we'll do some along here too. Awesome. So now all we have to do is add in some of our additional elements. We can start doing all kinds of cool stuff, add in forests and whatnot. So we could do the same thing as we did before. There's lots of forests and trees and all kinds of different elements. So we can just kind of start to drop these in as well. Again, we can kind of just paint them, and you want to kind of do them in a similar fashion as before. These are much more of a traditional kind of top-down view. And you can actually layer these on top to make some pretty cool kind of effects as well. Very cool. And then we can go into our brushes, for example. Let's make a new painting layer. We're going to drop this again underneath our coasts if we want, but we could do it above as well. It depends. And maybe we're going to call this like borders. And so we have all of these different border brushes. And these are pretty fun to use. So basically what they are is little divides that we can use to denote regions or whatnot. So all I have to do is kind of paint out whatever borders we want. I usually do it underneath, so I can kind of do things along these lines and just kind of paint out whatever regional kind of borders that I might want. And I could do them in different colors and variants and do all kinds of different stuff. maybe I'm going to do one that is maybe the desert region is divided into its own kingdom. And again, I can also come in and change these colors to whatever we wish. So maybe I want that border to be like a dark red. I certainly can. You can also use these brushes for some cool kind of travel lines. You could do like trade routes. So if we were going to do like trade routes, maybe we're going to use a different brush for this. Or maybe we'll do something along these lines. Here's some arrows that we can actually use. So if we were going to do like trade routes from one particular region to another. Or weather patterns, or you could do all kinds of cool stuff with this. But lots and lots of fun stuff that you can kind of do. In addition to that, as you can see, we got a little bit of stuff around the outside of our map here. You might not want that. So we have a whole bunch of different border frames that we can actually put on here. That we can cover up the edges of this. So we might want to make this, it's a little bit too wide. And then we can just select our edge here and clean up the edges of our piece here very, very easily. And we have a whole bunch of different ones that we can use for this as well. And voila! Instant overland maps. I guess it's not really instant, but it doesn't take very long to create, that's for sure. Do you guys have any questions, or is there anything else that I can kind of explain here? I'll show you some of the actual cool effect things. We have some additional kind of effect things. We have this nice little vignette. I do oftentimes like to use these kinds of things. We'll put it underneath our borders here. And you can see that this actually just adds like a nice little fade in around it. And you can always adjust the opacity of it. I think that we'll just let's delete that layer. We'll add in one. You can see it gives this nice little soft kind of fade from the edges, which is always a nice little added feature. And again, we have a whole bunch of texture overlays. So this can all be used. And again, we can adjust these colors. Create some cool kind of texture. Nice. And let's put the vignette on top of all of it. We got a question from Fenster. What is the name of the map packs you used to draw the two world maps? So we have, this is the FG Regional Map Pack, and the other one is the FG Old World Regional Map Pack. Oh no, well thanks for watching. Sleep is always important. And let's go into our brushes, and I'm going to grab, let's grab this one. I have it all loaded up. And we will, boom, just like that. Lots of cool things that we can do inside of Fantasy Grounds. You can make pretty much anything that you wish. From handouts to regional maps, battle maps, the whole shebang. Are there any other questions? We're kind of winding down here. We made a couple of cool regional maps. We did a little bit of a demonstration on how to do kind of natural lighting from a cave. And so this next Saturday, we'll be actually diving into some of the new art packs. We'll be building out a medieval siege encampment with this kind of sieging against a castle wall. So that should be super fun. I will be doing a whole bunch of different terrain augmentation and whatnot to show all kinds of different stuff. So that should be super fun. All right, guys. Well, if there is no other questions, then we'll call it for today. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with me. I really enjoy the Saturday streams. I hope that you guys do as well. I try to keep things as informative as possible and go through as much as a broad kind of thing, just in case we have any new people here. But we will, as always, I'm going to put my my email address into chat. If you guys have any issues that you run into, or if there is something you want me to check out, or anything at all, feel free to send me a line. I will try to be as available as possible. There's a question from a test subject on YouTube saying that is there a video that viewers can recommend that show the split screen of GM player to help understand the perspective? So you can do that. You can do that very easily by connecting to your own game, which if you are interested in seeing the actual definitions of that. If you're talking about just in the image area, there's the hide, the toggling of player view, and you can do that by holding down Control P. So if you're just interested in the image area, you don't have to do it that way. All you have to do is hit Control P, and it will show you exactly what the players see. And then you can toggle it back and forth with this little button here. But if you do want to connect to your own game and see not just that, but the whole kind of the whole shebang that you're working on, as far as like the entire environment difference, you can just right-click on the icon at the bottom if you are in Windows, and then just click on Fantasy Grounds Unity, and it will open up a second instance of that. It'll bypass the updater. and you can then just connect to your own game. As far as that, if there are videos that show that, I am not exactly sure. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I'm going to call it here, and I hope you guys have a wonderful weekend. If you're an American, have a good 4th. Otherwise, we will see you next time. Take care, all.